If you're someone who's come to this country in the past 3 or 4 years and have been thinking to buy a house, it can seem pretty challenging because after 2021, the market was just insane. Houses were getting 10, 20, $30,000 more expensive day by day. And it seemed like an average individual cannot buy a house like in their lifetime. Yes, I know the video is titled How as an Immigrant You Can Buy a House and What Are the Things You Should Do. But I think I've kind of realized is that buying a house is such a unique experience that what I did in the past or what someone you know did in the past might not work for if you try to do the same thing today. And what I mean by that is this is a situation which is very unique to the individual who's trying to do this process. And so instead of me coming on YouTube and kind of telling people, oh, this is what you need to do, or you need to save this much money, or do blah, 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 like I said to myself, let me make a video of my personal experiences as to how, when I came to Canada as an immigrant, the kind of challenges I faced and what I did to overcome those challenges. I'll make a video highlighting my experiences, and the objective is that if someone like you is watching this video, is definitely trying to buy a house in Lower Mainland, and maybe you can learn something from my experiences or from my mistakes, and hopefully that process gets a little easier for you. So I came to Canada in April of 2010. I know it's been almost 15 years since I've been here. And if you're going to tell me, well, 15 years ago things were easier and today is very difficult, well, just hold your horses. If someone is coming to this country as an immigrant, no matter when you came, it doesn't matter. There are challenges that you have to go through. And this was the beginning of the issues that I had. So I was 26 years old, so I wasn't married, no kids, no responsibilities at that time. So I was like pretty easygoing at that time. I had also worked in 4 other countries before I came here, so I had a lot of international experience, and I worked as a pastry chef. So I'm thinking in my head when I'm coming here, well, I should not have a problem trying to find a job because I have international experience and I have very good working experience and all that stuff. So this will not take a long time for me to find a job. But boy, was I wrong. I bounced around from a job to another job, just trying to see if this thing works out. And then if I was getting a job in my field, it was just not as rewarding. Like I was starting again from the bottom most level, and I was getting paid very little money, but then I was being told to do so many other things that were not a part of my job. And it was not a good experience. And this one dialogue that I'm sure you, as an immigrant who's come here, will get to hear quite often. You don't have Canadian experience. It's been 15 years. I still don't know what that means, but I was told that a lot. I don't know if it's a ploy to not pay you enough or what, but yeah, I've been through that. So at this point, I'm not really thinking about buying a house. I'm just thinking about making sure I pay rent, I get through this day, and try to have some sort of stability going on in my life. And it happened. It happened soon. So I didn't really get a job in my field, but I was now financially a little bit stable. I was making $15 an hour, which is minimum wage today, but back then minimum wage was like $10. So I was just barely making more than what minimum wage is. But yeah, so when I saved up some money, I went to Superstore one day to buy PS3 because the new Call of Duty was out, and I was like, yeah, I gotta buy a PlayStation. And when I went to the store, coming out of the store, there was it used to be PC Financial, what Simply Financial is now. And the kiosk person in the bank was like, oh, you buying a PlayStation? He was just trying to make some small talk with me. And I started talking, and then they said like, how about you get a mortgage? I was like, okay, I've never thought of getting a mortgage, but Well, let's entertain this. And so she started running numbers. At this point, I didn't have any debt. I'd saved up some money. And so she gave me a number of 180,000 to like 200,000. And this was, without doing a hard credit check. So there's some variability in it. So I was like, okay. And then she suggested, yeah, you can get a condo, a low-rise condo in Surrey. And like, and now when I look back, it's $160,000, $170,000 for a condo in Surrey. Wow. Anyways, now that I was trying to do the research, before this conversation that I had with this bank person, I never looked at the house prices. I never looked at apartment or anything. And I realized pretty quickly that the budget that I have with 200,000 is just not enough. So the first thing I did is I picked up a part-time job, and that boosted my income. So like today, the banks are like asking that you show 2 years of employment. Back then, it was not the case. So I picked up another part-time job or anything. And I realized pretty quickly that the budget that I have with 200,000 is just not enough. So the first thing I did is I picked up a part-time job, and that boosted my income. So like today, the banks are like asking that you show 2 years of employment. Back then, it was not the case. So I picked up another part-time job, and it did help me raise my credit. So according to me, if I buy a pre-sale apartment, it gives me 2 or 3 years time for when I'll give them the down payment. And during that time, when the building is being constructed, I don't have to make any mortgage payments. I don't have to pay any tax or anything. I can try to save up some more money because, when you buy a house, you pretty much give out all the money you have. And then going forward, it becomes really difficult because paying your mortgage isn't the only thing. There are so many other bills that come along with that territory. Now, when I was looking at pre-sales, a lot of people will come and tell me that, oh, if you're going to buy a pre-sale, you can add another 50,000 and, buy a rancher in Surrey. And at that time, you could buy a rancher for like 420, 430. And to them, my argument was like, I'm barely qualifying for 375,000. How do you think I can cough up another 50, 60 grand, so that I can buy a rancher because you say so? And this is where I would like to tell the person who's buying the house, or in this case, you, do not listen to people who are not familiar with your financial situation. Buying a house is very personal scenario where you know your finances better than anybody else. If someone comes and says, oh yeah, you should do this or that, before you think of that, think about your pocket first. Because if you try to overstretch yourself, you're going to have a lot of problems. And believe me, it only gets more difficult. So I just stopped what everyone was saying, and I said, no, this is the best option. Because if you buy something right away, like if I was to buy something right away after listening to them, then in that case, within a month or two, I would have to close, and then now I have to pay mortgage. And on a single person salary, it can be pretty difficult. And so I already knew that. So I decided, no, the best option for me is to wait for 2, 3 years. I will, at least if I'm able to save up another 5%, I would not pay them, but I will keep that as a buffer so that if something happens, I get sick or I can't go to work or lose a job, at least I have the money to pay the mortgage. So that was my logic behind it. I can very vividly remember the day when I went to buy my first condo. My appointment time was at 12:30. They started the pre-sale process at 12. And when I went there, I was just astonished. There was a lineup. Friends and some family members, they told me that if you're buying a condo in a high-rise building, don't go on the highest floor just because of the views, and it would be very expensive. So if you can find something on similar floors like 8th, 9th, 10th, it's gonna be the same thing, just you would save a bit of money. And to that I said, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I was like, not a problem. I go there and I see this chaos, and I try to find someone to help me, and she says, oh, you're looking for a 2-bedroom? I was like, yeah. And she takes me to this concierge desk where this guy is dressed up as like, I don't know what, but he's giving out the numbers and what are units available and all that. So I was talking to them, and then he gave me, oh yeah, there's only one unit left. Now, this is a building that had 77 units, and I was getting the last unit. That means this building was sold out in 30 minutes. Like, it was just insane. And the price was 375, like right on the dot. At this point, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, because this is like the max of what I'm allowed. And I was just not expecting that. But at that point of time, I just, went with the flow, went in their VIP area where they were feeding people who were, buying a house. And I was like, I couldn't even think of eating anything because I was just stunned at the amount of money I had just agreed to pay. And I didn't have a realtor. I didn't even knew at that time that you should have had a realtor who could have helped you, at least for someone like me who has no clue how to buy a house. But I just, they sat with me, went through the pages. Okay, sign here, sign here, sign here, blah, blah, blah. I gave him a check of 5% down, and that's it. And then they told me, like, you have 7 days, read this contract. If you don't like it, we can refund your money. And if you agree to it, and after 7 days you don't tell us or change anything, then it would become a binding agreement. So now during these 7 days, I'm just trying to figure out what to do. So the first thing I did was, I had a legal document in front of me, and I tried to read it, and I could not understand a single word. So called up a lawyer and I said, okay, I need this contract to be read. And then he explained me what it says. This is something where I try to explain this to people, that even though I had no experience, I still had the sense to go talk to a lawyer to advise me on the builder's contract. As a realtor, I see this today with a lot of people who buy a house but sign these contracts and take it very lightly. Like, you should at least go see a lawyer. You're spending $600,000-$700,000. Go spend a little bit of money on a lawyer. He'll give you the right advice, because these contracts are very one-sided. They are for the benefit of the builder. They're not for your benefit. You have to understand that. And so they rely on realtors. And as a realtor, I also tell this to my clients, that you need to seek legal advice. I can give you general advice, but that is not a replacement for legal advice. But I'm surprised how many people don't do that. And I say this again and again, you should get legal advice once you're signing a contract, no matter whatever contract it is, buying a house or whatnot. Now that I bought the house, and everyone's thinking, oh yeah, it should be fine. I bought a house and it's going to be ready in 3 years or 2 years and it's all set. Well, that's when all my challenges started. Problem number one, at that time in 2012 is when I bought this place. British Columbia government decided to bring in HST. Just like you have in Ontario, 13% tax on pretty much anything and everything you buy. BC, you have 5 and 7. So BC government was like, yeah, how about we scrap the idea of charging you 5% and 7% separately, and we just charge you 12% on everything. And it was introduced, but people didn't like it, so it was taken back, but then it could not be taken back that way, so it stayed for some time. The problem for me was that because I was buying a house at that time, whereas I would have only paid 5% GST, because of the HST, I ended up paying 7%. So I paid more tax than anybody would pay in today's date. The other problem that I faced was that Harper government brought in a new bill for mortgage where they reduced the term from 30 years to 25 years. What that means is, if someone who is only buying a house with less than 20% would be only getting an amortization period of 25 years, which now means that when I got qualified before I bought this place, it was done at 30 years, and now the amortization is only at 25 years, which means I might not qualify for it. So it was a pretty stressful time. And that's when I discovered that there was another thing called as a builder's cap mortgage, which is not usually available with all the developers. But I'm not going to go too much into that detail, because if I start talking about it'll just become a whole topic in itself. But if you're getting builder's cap mortgage, you should go for that, because it does protect you from a lot of these changes that come due to these uncertainty in economic times. So yeah, just write in comments if you like to know what builder's cap mortgage is, and I'll make a video about it. So in the end, after going through all these challenges, after going through all these hassles of trying to find a mortgage and this and that, the crux of this whole video is that no matter when you buy a house, it's not going to be an easy journey. Like, you have to make sure that you have your priorities set. You have to make sure that you're not distracted by what others are saying. There are so many things that are happening in the market, the job market, the economic market, and economic situation. And I mean, these are macroeconomic factors, things that you cannot control. There will be people who say, oh, you need to buy that as an investment. And to everything I say, just shut it out. If you're someone who's been living in someone's basement and paying $1,500 or $2,000 rent, it's about time that you buy your own place, because when you buy your own place, you'll be able to not only build equity, but also, take advantage of the situation when the market goes up. And then when you sell this 2-bedroom apartment and then think, okay, now maybe I want to move into a townhouse, because now that you're married and have kids, it would be a bit more spacious. If you thought you would have saved money and then do it, like, you'll always be playing catch up. That's not how it goes. Like, that's how I did it. I bought my condo, sold it, then bought an investment property in Mission. Didn't live there. I used to still live on rent in Burnaby because of my work. But then when I sold that property, I made a good chunk of change out of it, and I was able to buy the house, a townhouse that I live in today. So instead of listening to other people, just look at your financial situation first. And the objective of me making this video is to guide people through this process, so that maybe you can learn something from my experience, and if it helps you to make the right decision. If you know someone who's looking to buy a house, maybe you can forward him this video so that he can try to look at this video and get some clarity. But if you're going to think that there's going to be a perfect time to buy a house, there's never a perfect time. Never. You're going to face something or the other while you're doing that, and that's part of life. So if you're going to do it, might as well just do it. It might seem like in the short term, short near future, your prices of your property have gone down, and that happens, and that's normal. You cannot control that. But what is for sure true is that over a period of time, your property value will always go up. And when it goes up, you will definitely make some extra money. And then you can use that investment plus the equity that you've been paying for the past few years to put it as a down payment to your next house, which would be maybe much bigger or maybe much closer to where you want to buy. And if you like to see some more videos or on different topics in real estate, just leave me a comment and I'll try to make something out of it. Till then, have a good one.